Picture this: a desolate Times Square, tumbleweeds rolling past shuttered Broadway theaters, rats wearing tiny I3NY shirts because even they know the tourists aren't coming back. All right, maybe it's not that bad yet, but it's getting there. In today's episode, we're diving into the mass exodus from New York City. Why are people leaving, and what does it mean for the city? Is it just a temporary blip, or are we witnessing the slow-motion collapse of the Big Apple? Buckle up, folks, because things are about to get, well, let's just say interesting. So about this whole mass exodus thing, we're not talking about a couple of hipsters moving to Portland for cheaper avocado toast. This is serious. We're talking nearly 700,000 people, give or take a few lost tourists who wandered into a subway station and never found their way out. These are New Yorkers, born and bred, who decided to trade in their bodega loyalty cards for, well, just about anything else. Now, you might be thinking, people move, Marcos, it's what they do. And you'd be right, except when the number of people fleeing your city is larger than the population of, say, Wyoming. It might be time to ask, what's in the water? Or more accurately, what's in the water? Is it rent? Because let's be honest, living in New York City has always been a bit like dating a charming but emotionally unavailable musician. Exciting at first, but eventually you realize you're sleeping on an air mattress and surviving on ramen noodles. But lately, that charming musician has also developed a nasty habit of raising the rent every 5 minutes and forgetting to take out the trash. The cost of living in this concrete jungle has skyrocketed faster than a Spider-Man villain's insurance premiums. Rent is astronomical. Finding an apartment bigger than a shoebox requires a blood sacrifice to the real estate gods. And don't even get me started on the price of a decent bagel. And it's not just the cost of housing. Everything is more expensive here. Groceries, transportation, even that questionable hot dog you buy from a street vendor at 3 a.m. You know the one I'm talking about. So people are leaving. They're packing up their bags, their dreams, and their suspiciously large collection of I/3NY shot glasses, and they're heading for greener pastures. Or at least, pastures where they can afford both rent and guacamole. Now, you might be thinking, okay, so some rich folks are moving to Connecticut. Big deal, right? Wrong, because here's the thing. When people leave, businesses suffer. And when businesses suffer, well, let's just say it's not pretty. Imagine a delicate ecosystem, but instead of cute little bunnies and chirping birds, it's filled with bodegas, vintage clothing stores, and those weird little shops that sell nothing but Christmas ornaments year-round. These small businesses, the lifeblood of the city, are getting squeezed from both sides. On one hand, they're dealing with the same economic pressures as everyone else. Rising rents, inflation, and the ever-increasing cost of doing business in a city that seems determined to suck every last penny out of your pocket. On the other hand, they're facing a wave of shoplifting and looting that would make even the artful dodger blush. And before you start yelling about how I'm demonizing the poor and downtrodden, let's be clear. I'm talking about organized rings of criminals who are cleaning out stores with the efficiency of a well-oiled machine. It's gotten so bad that some stores have resorted to locking up basic necessities like toothpaste and deodorant, which, let's be honest, is a pretty good indication that things have gone completely bonkers. And then there's the whole migrant crisis. Now, I'm all for helping those in need, but when you have thousands of people pouring into a city that's already struggling to provide for its current residents, something's got to give. It's like trying to fit a whole extra elephant onto a clown car that's already bursting at the seams. The city is trying, bless its heart, but it's like trying to put out a 5-alarm fire with a squirt gun. The shelters are overflowing, the resources are stretched thin, and the situation is just untenable. And amidst all this chaos, small businesses are struggling to stay afloat. They're closing down left and right, leaving behind empty storefronts and a whole lot of unanswered questions. So, you thought you could escape the clutches of the New York State Taxman by hightailing it to Florida? Think again, my friend, because New York has a message for all you tax refugees. You can run, but you can't hide.
See, New York State is hurting. It's like that friend who just got dumped, went on a spending spree they couldn't afford, and now they're hitting you up for rent money. And how are they planning to recoup their losses? By unleashing the hounds of digital surveillance, that is.
They're using fancy algorithms and artificial intelligence to track down former residents who've fled to tax-friendly estates. It's like something out of a dystopian sci-fi novel, except it's real. And it's happening right now.
Think about it. The government is literally watching your every move, tracking your social media posts, your credit card transactions, even your online dating profile, which, let's be honest, is probably the most terrifying part of all. And if they find even a whiff of evidence that you might be spending more than 183 days a year in the Sunshine State, bam, you're hit with the New York State tax bill.
It's enough to make you want to give up on society altogether, move to a remote island, and live off the grid. But even then, knowing New York, they'd probably find a way to send you a tax bill via carrier pigeon. Look, I get it. Nobody likes paying taxes. It's about as much fun as a root canal without anesthesia. But this whole track you down and squeeze every last penny out of you approach, that's just bad for business. Literally. It's just one more reason why people are saying sayonara to the Empire State and hola to states with a slightly less aggressive approach to revenue collection. Let's play a little game, shall we? I'm going to describe 2 states, and you tell me which one sounds more appealing.
State number 1, home to bustling cities, world-class cultural attractions, and enough Michelin-starred restaurants to satisfy even the most discerning foodie. Also, crippling taxes, sky-high rent, and a subway system that smells like a combination of stale urine and despair.
State number 2, beaches, sunshine, and a distinct lack of state income tax. Sure, the cultural scene might be a bit lacking, and you might have to fight off the occasional alligator, but hey, at least you can afford to buy a house without having to sell a kidney.
Tough choice, right? It's no wonder that states like Florida, Texas, and Tennessee are looking more and more appealing to New Yorkers fleeing the urban jungle. These states offer lower taxes, a lower cost of living, and a more business-friendly environment. Plus, sunshine. Lots and lots of sunshine. Florida, in particular, has become a magnet for New York refugees. It's like the witness protection program for people who are tired of paying exorbitant taxes and getting stuck on the subway behind a mariachi band. And it's not just individuals. Businesses are packing up their briefcases and heading south as well, lured by the promise of lower taxes, less regulation, and a workforce that doesn't expect to be paid in magic beans. So, what's New York to do? Well, they could start by not driving away their residents and businesses with the enthusiasm of a hyperactive sheepdog. Just a thought. Now, I know what you're thinking. Marcos, you're being a bit harsh. New York is a resilient city. It's survived recessions, blackouts, even the cronut craze. It'll bounce back. And you know what? You're probably right.
New York is a city that thrives on chaos. It's in its DNA. But here's the thing. Even the most resilient cities have a breaking point. And while the official crime statistics might paint a rosier picture, the reality on the ground is a different story altogether. Package theft is so rampant that it's basically become a competitive sport. Businesses are closing down faster than you can say rent hike. And don't even get me started on the subway.
The city feels different. There's a palpable sense of unease, a feeling that things are just off. The energy, the vibrancy, the I'm living in the greatest city in the world swagger, it's fading. And that's the real tragedy here. New York City isn't just a collection of buildings and streets, it's a state of mind. It's a feeling. It's the energy that crackles through the air as you walk down a crowded street, the feeling that anything is possible, the knowledge that you're surrounded by millions of other dreamers and strivers, all chasing their own version of the New York dream. But what happens when those dreams become too expensive to afford? What happens when the city that never sleeps starts hitting the snooze button? As we've seen, the challenges facing New York City are complex and multifaceted. It's a perfect storm of economic pressures, social unrest, and political ineptitude. What will the future hold? Only time will tell. But one thing's for sure. New York City is at a crossroads. It can either adapt to the changing times and find a way to address the concerns of its residents and businesses, or it can continue down the same path and risk becoming a shadow of its former self. The choice is theirs. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more in-depth analysis. Because if there's one thing we love more than complaining about the problems of the world, it's doing it with the hope that someone, somewhere might actually be listening.